Oh, that's right. Oh, in that case.
Just in case Sheila gets angry.
All right, well, I have straight up 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Centennial Regional Planning meeting for Monday, August 2nd, 2021. Let's start with a roll call.
All right. Everyone in the Zoom world hear me okay? Okay, cool. Kathleen Taylor,
Here.
Kate Nelson,
Here.
Kyle West,
Here.
Larry Chesney,
Here.
Mark Johnson,
Here.
Peter Gower,
Here.
Sarah Chavilicek,
Here.
Scott Carey,
Present.
and Shelley Reed.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome our newest member, Kate Nelson. Welcome. And we're going to start with the election of officers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a note of order, the elections take place at the beginning, but the new elected chair and vice chair don't take over until the next meeting.
Yay. You're off the hook. So with that, we're first election of a chair from the city of Reno. Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Carey.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to nominate Commissioner Johnson as chair.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations. Next, we have election of a vice chair from Washoe County. Any discussion? A motion?
I'd like to nominate Sarah Civilicek.
And we have a motion to nominate Commissioner Chavilicek
Chesney, second.
and a second by Commissioner Chesney. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, next we will do the salute to the flag. How about Chris lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
You'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Is that Commissioner West?
Commissioner West, yes. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second.
Chesney, second.
Oh, we have a motion by Commissioner West and a second by Commissioner Chesney. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 5, which is public comment. Do we have anybody waiting or in the audience for public comment?
No, we received no digital public comment or physical public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Since there is no public comment, we will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes from the June meeting.
Chair Reed,
Yes, Commissioner Chavilicek.
move to approve the June 21st minutes.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Commissioner Johnson, I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Chavilicek and a second by Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Commissioner Nelson will abstain.
Okay. Motion passes. Item 7 is business of the day. First item A is a regional plan amendment and conformance review. Director Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 7A for possible action is a public hearing, 2019 Regional Plan Amendment and Conformance Review. Mesa Park Sphere of Influence Removal. The subject parcels are located south of LaSalle Heights, east of Burks Boulevard, east and west of Mahan Avenue, and north of I-80. The first part, I, is possible adoption of RPC Resolution 21-04, providing a recommendation to the RPGB regarding a mapping amendment to Map 1 of the 2019 Regional Plan to remove 28 parcels totaling 33.6 acres from the City of Reno's sphere of influence boundary. And then part 2 is the master plan conformance part. A conformance review of an amendment to the City of Reno master plan to remove the existing City of Reno master plan land use designations and analyze the corresponding Washoe County master plan land use designations that will be established per table 3.3 of the 2019 regional plan. For this item, we have policy analyst Nate Kusha.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Nate Kusha, Team RPA. As Jeremy mentioned, this item is a regional plan amendment as well as a conformance review for the Mesa Park SOI removal. There we go. All right, so this proposal does contain the two elements. The first being a regional plan amendment to remove 28 parcels totaling roughly 33.6 acres from the City of Reno's sphere of influence boundary. As well as a master plan amendment to remove the existing City of Reno master plan land use designations and analyze the corresponding Washoe County master plan land use designation that will be translated to per the translation table. So the subject parcels are located in Washoe County, directly north of I-80, both east and west of Mahan Avenue, and they're within Tier 2 of the Tier 2 regional land designation. Regional planning staff does recommend that both amendments conform with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. So as mentioned, the regional plan amendment is to remove the 28 parcels from the City of Reno's SOI boundary or sphere of influence and revert back to Washoe County unincorporated. So the City of Reno staff have indicated that the property owners initiated the proposal to allow existing homes. Many of those were approved and constructed decades ago under Washoe County's jurisdiction, to be able to expand and update it under the county's policies and regulations, and would alleviate requirements for these houses or properties to install curb, gutter, and other requirements that the City of Reno currently requires. So the current City of Reno master plan land designation is large lot neighborhood, and this will translate to suburban residential in the Washoe County master plan. And this is from, will be taken from the translation table of policy RC2, spheres of influence of the regional plan. And Washoe County will need to submit a subsequent request to establish their land uses on the site to complete this process. So policy RC10 of the regional plan identifies the 7 criteria that the RPC must consider when evaluating a regional plan amendment. The subject parcels are predominantly built, and the translation from large lot neighborhood Reno land use to suburban residential Washoe County land use will cause no increase in density allowed on the parcels, and therefore not increase regional capacities, existing and planned developments, nor cause additional facilities and services burden. Although some development constraint area does exist on the subject site, this is in the northwestern area, and these parcels would be subject to the Washoe County Master Plan, which does address DCA and their policies. Finally, the proposal will facilitate better intergovernmental coordination to the benefit of the owners of these parcels, as well as the health and welfare of the community, and will not impact the goals, visions, or policies of the regional plan itself. Policy RC9 of the regional plan outlines the 5 factors the RPC must consider when evaluating a conformance review. So this is the master plan amendment side of this request. Again, this request includes no increase in density and thus will not change projected housing capacities nor necessitate any additional infrastructure or services. The subject site is located in Tier 2 of the TMSA. Per the regional plan, development in Tier 2 land is generally less densely developed at suburban levels, which aligns with the proposed suburban residential land use under the Washoe County Master Plan. And as previously mentioned, for natural resources, there is DCA on site. However, it'll be subject to those Washoe County Master Plan policies regarding DCA. So with that, for this item, we're looking for 2 motions. The first one being for the regional plan amendment, which is the SOI removal. And then a motion on the conformance review, which is for the master plan amendment for the land use change. So that concludes my presentation. Myself, as well as City of Reno staff, are available for any questions.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff or for the City of Reno? Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was curious, and Nate, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but I was just curious why these subject sites were included in the Reno's sphere of influence and for how long it's been in the city sphere. They're largely developed for the most part. I was just curious for how long and why these were in the city sphere.
Correct. I don't know that I can answer why, but I believe these have been in the sphere since about 2002 when the spheres expanded. I can turn it over to Angela if she has any intel onto maybe why these properties are in the City of Reno sphere of influence.
Thanks.
Good evening. For the record, Angela Foose, Assistant Community Development Director with the City of Reno. We tried to go back and look at the history of why these were included. When you look at all the area that's surrounded and been developed more recently, the area directly north has been developed with single family. To the east, there's some multifamily. So there's a number of parcels that actually have been in our sphere and annexed and developed. So those ones all made sense. They were previously vacant when they came into the sphere. The difference with these is most of these parcels were already developed with single family homes under the Washoe County jurisdiction. So as they've now been sitting there in our sphere, Reno has not made any attempt to annex them. They're there, they're existing. A number of these parcels have come forward in the last couple years and asked to add a detached garage or expand their house. And a lot of our zoning code requirements really conflicts with how their house is built on their site, how it's designed. And so we're really just running into issues with our code is not the same code that the county had when they were built, and so it's creating a lot of conflicts. Those that do want to come forward are required to do variances, and again, it's difficult to approve a variance unless there's a hardship, but just because you're there and you want to expand isn't necessarily a hardship. So taking all of those kind of things into consideration, our council felt it was appropriate to take them out of the sphere, and that's why they supported this amendment.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Any questions from the commissioners not in the room? Seeing none, this is a public hearing item, so I'll open it up for public hearing. Is there anyone waiting to comment from the public?
We have not received any physical public comment cards, and we have not received any digital public comment either.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the commission for additional questions or comments. We have 2 items to vote on. The first one is the regional plan amendment. We do require a supermajority, 2/3 vote on this, just FYI.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Johnson, I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay. For the regional plan amendment, I move to adopt RPC Resolution 21-04 regarding an amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report, and I can make all of the findings as presented this evening.
Thank you. We have a motion. Anybody want a second?
Commissioner Reed?
Commissioner Gower will second.
I think
Okay.
Commissioner
Yes,
West.
I'm
Beat you
I'm
to it.
second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Johnson, the second by Commissioner West. Any discussion? Okay, since we do require a supermajority, I'm going to do a roll call vote for this item.
All right, that sounds good. Kathleen Taylor,
Yes.
Kate Nelson,
Yes.
Kyle West,
Yes.
Larry Chesney,
Yes.
Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Peter Gower,
Yes.
Sarah Chavilicek,
Yes.
Scott Carey,
Yes.
and Shelley Reed.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have the conformance review.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Johnson, I'll just continue along and move to find the Mesa Park SOI removal amendment to the City of Reno Master Plan in conformance with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report. And again, I can make all of those findings.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Chesney, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Johnson, a second by Commissioner Chesney. Any discussion? And once again, this also requires a 2/3 vote. Can I do a roll call?
Of course. Kathleen Taylor,
Yes.
Kate Nelson,
Yes.
Kyle West,
Yes.
Larry Chesney,
Yes.
Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Peter Gower,
Yes.
Sarah Chavilicek,
Yes.
Scott Carey,
Yes.
and Shelley Reed.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Next is item 6B, the annual report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Item, I guess it's 7B, for possible action, the presentation and possible approval on the 2020 Truckee Meadows Annual Report. For this, we have Chris Tolley to take us through the beginning, and then I'm going to say some words towards the end.
Good evening, Chris Tolley, TMRPA. I'm going to load up the presentation. There we go. There we go. Cool. All right, good evening again, Commissioners. Chris Tolley, TMRPA. And thanks for the introduction, Director Smith. As noted, this is the 2020 Truckee Meadows Annual Report, or TMAR. As we have new commissioners sitting on the RPC that have not seen the TMAR previously, we'll cover a little background to start. Annual reporting process was created by state law and is also reflected in the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. NRS requires that each local government and affected entity prepare and submit complete report to the RPC and the RPGB by April 1st of each year. The purpose of these reports is to indicate any action taken within the previous calendar year, which furthers or assists in carrying out the policies or programs contained in the regional plan, and any work relating to the plan that is proposed for the next calendar year. Historically, at least in the recent history, the annual reporting function of TMRPA was underutilized. With adoption of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan, the annual reporting function was improved and includes the typical submittals that you'll see in the appendix to the packet from the jurisdictions and entities, and starting this last year, a compilation of regional statistics. We are continuing to expand the annual reporting function in line with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan, which we'll discuss in a bit. And finally, the TMAR is truly a team effort with each of us handling multiple components of it. Here is a list of the annual report submittals. So we received, this is what we usually get for those commissioners who haven't been a part of this process before. Get one from each of the jurisdictions, the RTC, the RTAA, SVGID, TUMA, Air Quality Management District, and Environmental Health Services Division, the Home Consortium, and then the school district. And then to briefly introduce policy RCA, this is the TMAR policy. Overall, this instructs TMRPA staff to add additional value and context to the annual reporting function and to monitor the implementation of the regional plan. We do see this policy as a huge win as part of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan update process. And then the sub-bullet lists the topics that we analyze as part of the TMAR. And then given this is the second iteration of the TMAR, we're still building capacity and understanding for some of these topics, particularly as they relate to the TMAR. And then for the 2020 annual reporting cycle, staff wanted to continue the TMAR improvements started this last cycle by obtaining some standardized CIP data. TMRPE, staff sees the convergence of the TMAR and the Public Infrastructure Investment Plan, or PIP, as a natural evolution that also minimizes the amount of information and time requested of the jurisdictions and entities. And then I'll transition to Jeremy to cover the last couple bullets. As well
Thank
as the
you,
next
Chris.
slides.
Jeremy Smith for the record. Yeah, and hopefully you can just press the button for me because I don't have a clicker. But let's stay there for a sec. So, yeah, Chris is right. A couple of things. Since we've been doing since the 2019 regional plan update, one of the things that we recognized was we need to make sure we're fulfilling our obligations according to state law. And one of the things in the contents of the regional plan statute is a review, a summary of the 5-year CIPs of the jurisdictions and affected entities. And that's really not something that our agency has been doing. And so we thought a good idea would be to basically align our request of the jurisdictions around that kind of CIP information to take place with the same ask for our annual reporting mechanism. So we're minimizing the times we have to bother people, but we're trying to get all the stuff we're supposed to get. And also, we wanted to start to get that CIP type information in-house and, basically test out what is it telling us as we move into the next phase of starting the next initiative, rather, the Public Infrastructure Investment Plan. So we started our NR plan. We're going to talk about that next. But the next thing we're going to need to fire up probably in the late fall, early winter will be this PIP process so we can look to also strengthen our public facilities policies in advance of the 2024 update. So we're trying to kind of combine a couple of things here, our annual reporting function with our ask for CIP information, with our understanding of public infrastructure investments in the region, and how we make that an asset, a spatial tool we can use to understand, are we fulfilling the priority hierarchies as identified in the regional plan? We want to see investment and density in the core and then moving out. And so we want to also check and see, do we see investment taking that same priority hierarchy? And if not, why not? Maybe that's okay, but let's get some understanding about it. So that's what we're trying to do, and this is kind of our first attempt to put that kind of information together since we worked on similar stuff in the housing study back in 2016. So it's cool to get back to it. Looks like, well, just quickly, there was a ton of projects got sent to us from City of Reno, Washoe County, City of Sparks, the Airport Authority, Tumwa and the RTC, and we're honestly still messing with it. We don't want to put something out there that is incorrect. I think what I've learned over the years, especially with the public works folks, is that you have to be very sure and specific about how you put forth this information, because it has a very particular way that it's used, and we don't want to be flippant or anything like that. And so we're, out of respect, it's not ready for prime time. But we do have a sort of ready for prime time draft of the results of the regional transportation plan, with the idea being that we would kind of wet the whistle. What are we trying to do here? You can sort of see the direction we're heading. And so what we've got here on this slide is, and it's kind of tough because the screen share for some reason is covering the bottom where the x-axis would be. But the RTP, Regional Transportation Plan, is divided into 3 time periods: 2020 to 2025, 2026 to 2030, and then 2030 and beyond, or beyond 2030. And so what you're seeing there is the overall cost for projects in period 1 is the first blue bar. Second blue bar is the overall cost as identified right in the plan for projects identified in period 2. And then finally, that giant bar is everything that's in that last 20-year period, that is everything in the kitchen sink, right? So what we wanted to do was say, okay, that's cool that we have that breakdown by time, but where are they, and how does that match up with our tiering system, our regional land designations? And so that schematic map on the right is basically just showing that we have the tier boundaries, and we've overlaid those red lines over it. Those are all, the RTC does a great job of spatializing every single improvement and putting the name and the cost and all of that onto it. So we were able to take that information and basically intersect it with the tiers to get to the next slide, which now allows us to break down those costs by tier across the 3 time periods. So the first pie graph is showing the first period, 2020 to 2025. And again, the legend is cut off, but it follows the same color system you'd see in our plan. The darkest color is the mixed-use core. That's a pretty big chunk of that first pie. And then you've got the next darkest blue, that is Tier 1. And so collectively, the mixed-use core and Tier 1 in the first 5-year period are somewhere over, approaching 70%-ish of the total cost expenditure, which is in line with what we want to see in terms of our priority for spending. So it's matching really nicely. You can see that even in the second period, the spending is still a majority in those first two tiers, the mixed-use core and Tier 1. And so still the emphasis is on trying to do whatever it is, street widening, repainting, complete streets, a cycle track, whatever it happens to be. There's tons of projects. And then when we get into the further out period, we start to see some of that stuff that's currently in the outer tiers become probably more necessary and viable, and the investments then follow up to show that. But that's 10 years out. So that's how we want to do this for basically every entity that submits us the CIP type information, and build this picture for those domains that the regional plan covers in policy PF1, the 5 domains, which are basically transportation, education, water, wastewater, and stormwater. Could you slide one more forward for me, please? This is just another way to look at it. Now we have the tiers across the bottom, and what we're showing is the number of projects. So you can see that those first set of bars, the kind of, the middle blue color, it's pretty high. And look at the mixed-use core, that first bar, and then Tier 1 really jumps up, and then when you get to Tier 2, it's actually below Tier 1. So just even the number of projects is actually doubling down on our hierarchy, and some of that is because the RTC specifically adopted our tiering system as part of their criteria for the RTP. So we really are working together, and now we're trying to show you the evidence that's happening. Great, okay, so we can move from there. So let's take a quick look at the site itself and show you how far we got. It's always a mad rush to get all these statistics bundled into the site, by the meeting, but I think we made it. And Shawnee Sousa is our amazing graphics person that made all of these graphs and actually has really taken it to the next level this year with the interactive nature of right now. Some of the graphs, eventually will be all of the graphs will have this, but Chris, maybe we can just scroll down to the population. Oh, you guys are in control over there now. Okay, good. So that first one, 473,605 people. That is the governor's certified estimate from the state demographer for the year 2020 on July 1. And as you hover, you can start to actually get the value. Last year, everything was pretty much a static image. This year, we have interactive, graphs showing the amounts. And also, we're going to link the spreadsheet that has all the data in it so people can actually download this data and just use it. So that's a pretty cool path forward. I'd like to draw your attention, to this one that we're looking at now. So this is the annual population increment year over year by jurisdiction, where blue is Reno, green is Sparks, and purple is Washoe County. And starting with 2015 is the column on the far left. And what really surprised the heck out of me was how small the column on the far right is. So if you go all the way to the right, that's 2020, that little graph there. And just a year ago in 2019, maybe it's COVID, I'm not exactly sure, but we had something like 9,000, 10,000 new residents, according to the state demographer. And in this 2020, it's around 3,800, according to his data. So we're all very keen and waiting to hear what the decennial census has to say about all of this. But those results are still not available. The apportionments of results are available. I do have those here today, which is kind of interesting. In Nevada, the 2020 decennial census is claiming that there are 3,108,462 people now in Nevada. That did not change our number of delegates to the House of Representatives. But that number is 36,722 people less than what the state demographer reports for the state on July 1st of 2020 as well. So that's why they call them estimates, because, right, without physically counting everyone, which, the census does the best job of doing every 10 years, it's really hard to know. So we're going to keep our eyes on that and provide some of that information on the TMAR site. We feel that the TMAR is a living website, that as we get information, there's no reason to hold back. But I just wanted to point that out because I've been looking for another take on how many people there have been, and because what's also interesting, if we keep going down, and just to point out, Shani, if we click on understanding our population, we've got the consensus forecast graph there, and then we have some breakdown on demographics. We redid this using the American Community Survey data. The way the census puts forth race and ethnicity data is pretty specific, and so we've tried to mimic that in the graphing. And so that's what, if you want to learn more about how they do that, you can see why, for example, race as a breakdown no longer includes Latino. It is an ethnicity that is an overlay on top of race. And so it gets kind of complicated, but that's explained with this page here, if you want to check that out. So going back to my thought about the population growth seemingly being kind of small, which, possibly with COVID, there could have been some strangeness to it, but we did see an increase in dwelling units around, even more dwelling units than people. So let's take a look at those dwelling unit graphs if we can, please. That's a good one right there. Or actually, if we can go to the one right before that, that'd be great. So this is the dwelling units by tier, right? And so those 5 regional land designations, how have we been growing single family versus multifamily? And we almost messed this up, but luckily Cho caught us and we made it right. So that first graph on the bottom left says MU core. Look at that yellow line shooting up into the stratosphere there. That is multifamily units realized in the mixed use core. Something like 1,500 additional units or something got added in 2020. So that's pretty cool and exactly what we want to see. In tier 1, that signal came down a hair, but still higher than the single family signal in tier 1. And then tier 2 has a nice mix where now single family takes over basically in the second tier. So that's kind of how you can unpack these graphs. We set them up for both the regional land designations and by jurisdiction. Let's keep on moving. Let's go all the way down to employment at this point, because there's plenty of stuff you can click around in here. Oh, this is a good one. Let's stop right there. So this is a cool one because, sorry, thanks. I'm a nerd. So every year, if you can kind of just go down a little bit so they can see the years. Okay, good. So back to 15, what we're showing here is in 4 big categories. What do we do in our job here of making decisions about, you guys making decisions about land use, right? What do we add or subtract? In 2018, you can see that we subtracted a lot of non-residential and added residential and mixed use, right? And I believe that may have been the Stonegate development added a lot of those acres to this graph, thus change. So in 2020, we have an increase in mixed use, an increase in other, which I think might be a bit of an open space signal in the designation, and then we have residential being removed. So that's the decision making that happened during 2020, just to get a feel for how these things are changing. And then finally, the last highlight I'd like to go over would be the employment change. So we look at using the QCEW data, a 4th quarter rendition of basically total share by industry type. Those are like 2-digit NAICS codes, if that makes any sense to anyone. And it shows the distribution of these different industries. So, it's hard to read, but healthcare and social assistance seems to be the winner down there in the bottom. But what's really interesting is we had the COVID year and it really affected jobs. And so if we go down to the next graph that shows that change, one more right here, look at the negatives, right? Most of the industry types show a negative. And what do you think that big giant one is?
Hospitality.
Yep, hospitality, food services and accommodation. So it really shows the impact that COVID had on these sectors. And you can take a closer look. But that's 4th quarter 2020, a total difference of about 14,000 jobs from 2019. And then finally, below all of the graphs that we've added in there, we've actually put together summaries of the submitted annual reports that we get from each of the jurisdictions and affected entities. So we try to just summarize it so it's a quick read, but if you actually want to click in, there's access to the originally submitted report as well. With that, I think we're happy to answer any questions about the TMAR, and would hope that you guys would approve the report. Thank you.
Thank you. I can see how you can totally geek out on that stuff.
That's what I'm going to do when I go home.
I know. Good job, Shani.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah, it's really nice. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff?
I have none.
Oh, Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy, I appreciate the deep dive into the RTP data and synthesizing it with the regional plan tiers. I think that's really good stuff and something I don't know if this agency has really ever done in the past or we've done as a region. I was just kind of curious if you might be able to elaborate on why that's such a good thing to do and how that may help this commission and our governing board implement the goals and policies of our regional plan.
Yes, absolutely. Commissioner Carey, great question. Jeremy Smith for the record. I think, we've been working towards a regional form, a spatial pattern of regional form that, is a little more directed with these regional land designations. And in order to follow through and get the density where we want it, we have to be planning to serve it. And we have to understand the impacts of putting that density where we're going to put it. And it could be that as we do this work as in the public infrastructure investment planning and bringing all that information to bear, we've said all along that it's possible that our tier boundaries are not in exactly the right places. Because it could be that we learn that it is not feasible to support density in a given area that we've made dark blue or something, right? Or maybe there's an opportunity in an area that we haven't. And so I think that's going to be a huge win if we can bring that information together just for comparative sake. And then for the public infrastructure investment plan, just bringing the information from across the disparate, single purpose entities, like Tom was worried about water and, the RTC is worried about transportation. And so they talk obviously, and there's still collaboration, but we're really seeing ourselves as the place where we bring it all together. And we try to paint that picture from a regional perspective, overarching, even non-jurisdictional. That's why we have the tiering system. And again, to make sure that we are aligned in our thinking about the future. How many people do we expect? Where do we expect them to be going? And making sure that we don't have one entity planning for one future that's very different from an entity that over here that might be planning for a different future. We want to align our vision so that we do the best we can and being efficient about spending taxpayer money to serve it.
And really, that's part of improving the decision-making process as well. When you're talking about thinking, it's like, where have we made decisions regarding infrastructure, and then overlaying, not necessarily overlaying, but including with that a discussion or possibly approvals regarding density. So making sure that those two pieces of the picture line up, or to see where they do line up in the community and where they may not, and how that could be improved through the decision-making process.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner West?
Yes, just one comment. I appreciate all the effort that you and your staff has done on this, and I'm extremely impressed with the graphics and the way this is presented. I think this is not only valuable for those of us who are in the business and have to deal with this, but I think it's something that could really clarify information to the public as well. So again, thank you, and I am very impressed. You've all done a very good job.
Thank you. We need to have a motion to accept the report, right?
Do we have a motion in there?
Almost there. There you go.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Carey?
Yeah, I would concur with Commissioner West. I think this is really good data to have, and I was really interested reading through it over the weekend, all the different reports from the different agencies, and I think having the CIP information, the way you guys collected it, will be helpful with the PIP planning process moving forward, but I think it's just really good information for the public in general. I know from Sparks, we've always appreciated the opportunity the City Council gives our commission to review the city's capital improvement plan for consistency with the city's comprehensive plan. It's always a good exercise because that tying that infrastructure and the dollars to goals and policies is really powerful stuff. We can just have goals and policies till it makes our head hurt, but if you tie money to it, I think it makes it more real and it's just good policy. So I'll take a stab at it here. I would move to accept the submitted annual reports and the 2020 Truckee Meadows annual report.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Can you get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Carey and a second by Commissioner West. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And next we have item 7C, which is the scope of work for the Natural Resources Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Again, item 7C is for possible action, presentation and possible approval of the Natural Resources Plan scope of work. And for that, we have Nate Kusha, our policy analyst, to take us through. And we also have Kelly and Colleen from Cardno joining, and they're going to say a few words after Nate's presentation.
Great. Good evening again, Commissioners. Nate Kusha for the record. As Jeremy mentioned, for this presentation, we'll go over the draft scope of work, and we'll also introduce you to our team from Cardno, who are on Zoom, and they are a consultant for the data gathering portion of this project. So just to start, I'm going to go over kind of what's our goal for the Natural Resources Plan. And our long-term goal is to really have a centralized document of natural resource information, including narratives, data and information, and maps that is regularly updated and maintained to inform policy decisions and really be a resource for the region. So in addition to this, we're hoping that this will lead to some policy implications and suggestions to guide improvements to our natural resource policies of our regional plan ahead of our 2024 regional plan update. And so for this scope of work, this is really on that data and information portion, and that's really what Cardno is going to be focusing on, is the data gathering, which we'll talk about in a minute here. So moving on to a timeline of this effort. This is kind of a rough timeline we've put together. Right now we are in that data gathering effort. We identified the natural resource plan. We selected our consultant, which is Cardno, and we are now scoping out the data gathering effort with Cardno. During that process, we'll also be doing some engagement and outreach to the public. That'll be going concurrently, and then starting a little bit later on, we'll move into that policy review and creation and the overall natural resource plan document creation. As mentioned, Cardno was really focusing on that data gathering effort. They may, depending on budget and time, we may have them help us out with some of that engagement and some of that policy implication stuff as well. Following all that, that'll be leading up to our regional plan update, which will utilize all this information in updating our policies there. And obviously, just ongoing maintenance is going to be a big focus of this plan as well. We're getting all this data in-house, and we want to make sure that we're up to date on that data as we move forward out of this process and just from here on out. Can you accept them, Damien? Thank you. Great. Okay, so moving into that scope now. The scope of work is split up into kind of two phases. Phase one has just the one task, which is what we're currently in, and that is the scoping, project initiation, and kickoff. So on July 26th, we had a steering committee meeting where we presented a first draft of this scope of work. We got some feedback and input there from our steering committee, and that transformed into our new draft that we have attached to your packet and presenting here tonight. So we're going to take your guys' feedback on that, take all your input, and then we're going to bring all of that to our governing board, and hopefully they will then approve the scope and we'll get going. So phase two is split up into 3 different tasks. The first one being outreach and engagement, then the data gathering, which is yet again that big chunk, that's what Cardno will be focusing on, and then task 4, the policy implications. So just to kind of touch on each of those, task 2, the outreach and engagement. Most of this outreach and engagement will be done by Team RPA staff here. We will be holding 2 stakeholder forums. The first forum, we will have Cardno there and involved with that to a small degree. And that's really helped to have them help to establish the contacts to reach out to gather data from. They'll be sending out a letter and they can speak a little bit about that later. Then we'll have another stakeholder forum, which will be kind of after the whole data gathering process. That'll just be trying to share a summary of the data we gathered and kind of where we're at in the process and what are the next steps. Cardno may or may not be involved. That'll all be budget dependent at that time. We'll also be doing some public outreach. That'll be through emails, social media, maybe some surveys, whatever it will be. That'll be TMRPA led. And then we'll also be working on the kind of resource topic area narratives, which we discussed previously to you guys. Those are different. We're going to have little different subcommittees. Hopefully, each of you maybe will be a kind of technical advisor on one of those committees, or a few, whatever you level of participation you want. And we're going to be writing up some kind of framework of the different topic areas that we'll be covering in the natural resources plan. Again, that will be TMRPA led. Will not be much Cardno involvement in that portion. Moving into task 3, data gathering. So this is the big chunk that we're focusing on for this scope, and this is where a majority of Cardno's time, as well as the budget that we've outlined for, will be spent in this portion. So for data gathering, we're going to do an initial assessment of existing data streams or data already in-house. We'll also identify data providing entities and compile and organize all that data, outline a data maintenance plan to keep things updated, and create a data dissemination plan. Again, this will be mostly Cardno-led. This will be what they're focusing on. TMRPA will also be offering assistance and be involved still. Cardno will be leading that, and I think they can speak a little bit more to this in a minute. Then we move on to our final task of phase 2, and that's the policy implications. So for this task, we're going to be creating some maps to kind of help visualize all the data and information that we've gathered through that data gathering process. And this will really be to support the policy creation for the 2024 regional plan update. We'll also come up with policy suggestions. Cardno, again, budget dependent, will hopefully have some money there to help us out with some of the kind of policy implications and suggest some policy, maybe language or at least framework, whatever it may be, ahead of the 2024 regional plan update again. So with that, we have kind of an estimated hours and estimated costs for each of these different tasks. Again, that task 1 is where we're currently at, and that's phase 1, scoping all of this. As you can see, that task 3, the data gathering, is where most of the money and time will be spent. And this is the $50,000 that we were approved for to pay Cardno to help us with this stuff. So you can take a look at that. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Kelly and Colleen from Cardno, and so they can introduce themselves and give you guys a little bit of their input for the data gathering, what they're thinking for the process. So with that, hopefully they can hear me.
Hey, thanks, Nate. This is Kelly Sturl, a hydrologist with Cardno, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening to introduce ourselves. Colleen, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? I think you might be on mute. Well, Colleen is a colleague. She is an environmental planner with Cardno, and we are, I'm serving as the project manager. Colleen is the principal in charge, and together we are working with TMRPA to refine the scope of this project. As Nate has mentioned, our primary focus will be on the data gathering task. I thought he did a very nice job summarizing kind of those key steps, but you know, a big part of this effort up front will be identifying those natural resource data providers, and then systematically going through and introducing ourselves via a letter to these different providers and asking for the data that they have that is related to, you know, several different topic areas such as physical and biological resources, open space, recreation. And so again, I'm here and happy to answer any questions regarding data gathering or other aspects of the natural resources plan that we're involved with.
Thanks, Kelly. And this is Colleen Shade, and I am a land use and environmental planner. I've been planning professionally for, oh goodness, 32 years. And more than the first half of my career was with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. I am so excited about your project and the comprehensive approach that you're taking. I think, and Jeremy, it was probably by design that you were able to share your annual report this evening, and seeing how important that data is and how important it is to your stakeholders and the public in general, so they understand and they're on board and invested in that vision that Jeremy was talking about. That investment in a vision is what gets you to where you want to be 20, 25, and 30 years out. And it all starts with the data that can support decisions. And so we're really excited to be part of this project.
Great, thanks, guys. I'm going to bring up presentation just once again. So really what we're looking for from you guys tonight is your input and feedback on that draft scope of work. Any suggestions of anything we're missing or something maybe that we're taking on that you don't think we should. And then the budget and hours for Cardno. Make sure that's all aligned with what we're thinking for this project. So happy to answer any questions or take any feedback you have.
Thank you, Nate. Any questions or comments from the commission? Yeah, I need to see the screen of the. Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just kind of lead off with my feedback. I'm excited that this is moving forward. I think this is going to be a really cool planning update, and I'm excited for what policies come out of this and what it's going to look like for the 2024 update. One thing I think is sort of missing in the task 2, the outreach and engagement, is a process for government-to-government consultation with the tribes in our area. I think particularly the tribes in the area will have a lot of good expertise and a lot of good data, quite frankly, to share with this planning group. And I don't think a letter or inviting them to a stakeholder engagement is going to cut it. Obviously, those are good tools, but I think there needs to be some time built in. Either it's staff, probably would be the most appropriate way to do it. But I think with the tribal historic preservation programs, with the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe, and the Washoe tribe in Nevada and California, it will be important to send a letter, give them a call, send them an email, meet with them formally, and maybe even, if appropriate, have a presentation to the tribal councils if you're going to try to get data from them. So I would suggest within the scope of work that kind of be called out for specific government-to-government consultation with the tribes. And I think that will really help. If we engage them early and often, we'll get better input from them and ultimately lead to a better plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Oh, go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. A great comment. And in fact, during the steering committee meeting, it was suggested that we potentially try to add a tribal member to the steering committee. And so that would be a good step in the right direction. I think we're pretty sensitive to working with the different tribes, given our history here, right, and what we've learned along the way. So we are going to engage, and your suggestions are awesome. Maybe one of the reasons that I think we'd still put it in, Commissioner Carey, to your point, but we tried to pare the scope down to those things that Cardno would be involved in, and they may in fact need to be involved in that too. So I think it's not inappropriate at all. But our first attempt was a little bit wider, and it had a lot of TMRPA activities, and it got a little bit confusing for the steering committee. I guess our feedback we got, what are we paying for, and what are you just doing, TMRPA? So we tried to kind of whittle it down to what we're paying for.
Yes.
But good points, and we're gonna make sure.
Thank you for that. And Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Just really quickly, I appreciate that, and I think with the limited hours that you have with the Cardno folks, that's a good approach. I just kind of want to put it out there on the record and make it important, particularly with the cultural resources element, and then the other elements too. I think the tribes will have a lot of great data and input to share. Thank you, Madam
Absolutely.
Chair.
And just if I may, I do think, a letter, these stakeholder forums, these are kind of just a foot in the door sort of method. Well, obviously, it's not going to be our only method of engaging with these folks. So that'll be a first step. We'll follow up with phone calls, whatever it is, to make sure that we engage the groups that we need. And we will have something for you guys to look forward to. We will be coming with a more kind of fleshed out stakeholder list that we'll send out to all you guys to take a look at, make sure we're not missing anybody so that we're engaging everybody that we think we need to.
Can I do one more?
Director Smith, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Jeremy Smith, the record. Just one more thing, there's probably going to be a field trip. So if you want to get in on the natural resources field trip, we're going to certain areas, that are areas of known concern, and we want to get boots on the ground and see them. So I hope I didn't steal your thunder on that one, Nate, sorry. But you're all invited to join us. If you want to go, we'll keep you posted.
Hopefully it won't be when it's over 100 degrees. Or smoky, there you go. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Thank you. I think we need to make a motion on this to,
Just do the same motion to accept the report.
yeah, and then we'd modify it to, do we need to modify it to include the comments that Commissioner Carey made about engaging the tribes and test too?
Madam Chair, Jessica Prunty for the record. I don't think you have to modify the motion, given the fact that we're trying to approve the scope of work, which will be an addendum to the contract with Cardno, and Commissioner Carey's comments were more for Team RPA's list of things to do as they're going to embark on this project.
Perfect, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Is that
Commissioner Gower?
Commissioner Gower? Go ahead, Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to accept this report, and I would just like to note that the steering committee did provide some relevant feedback, and I know staff knows that, and I would just like to put on record that that information and feedback Jeremy mentioned was what Commissioner Carey noted in his comments.
Perfect. We have a motion by Commissioner Gower. Do we have a second?
A second by Commissioner Chesney.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes unanimously. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to item 8, which is reports, and we'll start with the director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Super quick report here. We're back on track with regular meeting dates. So we're back in the chambers here August 26th of this month. That'll be our normal fourth Thursday. And we'll still be a hybrid type approach as far as I can tell, because I don't think the masks are going anywhere. So, come with your mask on or stay home and be on Zoom. Either way. Also, we have version 5 updates that you could pick up for your plan. If you have a paper plan and you want to update it with the text and amendments that we've passed so far, they're available there at the clerk's desk on the way out. And if anyone sitting here or on the Zoom call needs a physical copy of the regional plan, just let us know and we'll make sure you get an up-to-date one as soon as possible. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Are there any member reports? Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to throw it out there for save the date. The State Planning Conference for the Nevada chapter of the American Planning Association is going to be held here in Reno on October 18th through the 20th. Great opportunity. I'm on the steering committee for planning that planning conference, but I think we're going to have some really good sessions and encourage everyone to apply. Registration is open.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Any other member reports? All right, seeing none, let's move on to legal counsel's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record. I have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. Future agenda items. Seeing none.
Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Chesney. Commissioner Gower and myself and a couple other commissioners were really
really critical of the urban wildlife, wildland interface parts of our regional plan. And the recent fires have brought to light how important that section of our regional plan is. And I don't know if it's time for us to put a committee together to take a look at it. But we really need to get a better understanding of the interface. And I'm not comfortable with the way the regional plan reads right now. So I just like to put that on the record.
Thank you. Director Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a great comment. I think it's an area that obviously we're pretty concerned about as well. And, you know, in the natural resource planning, I hate to throw everything to that big bucket, but as far as I know, there is no defined wildland urban interface boundary. You know, there are criteria-based ways to probably assess that and form a boundary. That's the kind of work we hope to do as part of the NR Plan data work to establish what is available, or, you know, what are the steps that would be necessary to make something available. It's kind of like akin to ridge lines. We have policies in our regional plan that promote the preservation of ridge lines, but there's no map of where these ridge lines are necessarily. So I think that's the kind of work we're trying to do in our data gathering, at least identify the fact that it does or does not exist and what would be the steps needed to achieve it.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments, Commissioner Chesney. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, can I follow up on that?
Sure.
I'm wondering if we could start with a presentation or an update from staff as to more of an educational presentation. What is the WUI? Who manages it? Is there WUI data? I mean, we don't have to get into the details of, you know, where it is and who manages it, but you know, just kind of an overview as a starting place. I think that would be really helpful as a, you know, decision maker also struggling with these type of decisions to at least initiate that dialogue.
Is that something we can do in one of our education sessions? I don't know how long something like that would take. I know you're trying to limit those to, what, 15 minutes or so?
True, but I think that's a pretty darn good idea. Definitely, we can do an item, which is an overview. We can either, you know, kind of bring it into the training element, or we can just introduce the concept. I think it would be great for us to brush up on that kind of topic area as well. So we can plan for an item.
Perfect. Any other suggestions, comments? Okay, let's go ahead and move to our last public comment. Do we have anybody waiting to comment?
Mute here. We do not have any public comment, either digitally or in person, that I'm aware of.
Thank you. So we will go ahead and close public comment. Any written correspondence?
We do not have any, no.
All right, thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Chesney, move to adjourn.
So moved. Meeting adjourned. They hit that gavel.
There you go, yeah.
I was just thinking to switch the last meeting.